Facebook. As we talk now, we just started, well, the discussion, continuing, I should say, the discussion on the property tax. It is coming. We don't know exactly when it's going to be implemented, but it is coming. There have been, will be people deployed basically to visit homes to get an assessment of the cost, the rental property, which is what they're basing the cost on, how much it would cost to rent your property, and that's how they're basing the property tax. So you can look out for those people visiting your homes to get various bits of information with respect to your homes. The issue also of renters came up. And what would happen with renters in the event that the landlord is not available. Many times you find many of these buildings, these apartments are being rented out and the landlord does not live in Trinidad and Tobago. So then what happens? Well, we were told that basically what will happen is that the renters may have to pay that property tax and then deduct it from their rent from the landlord. To see, if we can clarify the situation just a little bit more, we do have on the line with us via Skype actually, Martin George, attorney at law. So good morning to you, sir.
Hi, good morning to you, Ria, and this is yet another interview you're doing from Tobago.
Oh, you see, I tell you, Tobago is starring today. I told you that. I said so. Glad to have you with. Property tax and renters, is there any defined anything to say what will happen with respect to that if the landlords are unavailable?
Well, the thing is, Ria, when one looks at Section 31 of the property tax legislation, it is clear that the provision as outlined by Ms. West yesterday is there in the law. However, I can tell you that it is certainly one of the things that will be challenged, and I am fairly confident a court will want to look at the constitutionality of that measure. Because when you have a scenario where the law suggests that in seeking to collect property tax, the state can collect that tax from a tenant, and then the tenant can deduct this from the rent owed to the landlord, you are trespassing upon so many areas of the Constitution. Because first of all, the Constitution establishes a right to the enjoyment of property. And in a scenario such as this, money is defined as property. The courts have long since decided that. So therefore, the money which is due to the landlord in the form of rent is in effect the landlord's property, in quotation marks, as per Section 4 of the Constitution. So therefore, the landlord is entitled to that.
And isn't that also stated when you sign the rental contract?
Well, that's the next thing. The rental contract is now a private contract between the landlord and the tenant. So I am not sure how on earth the state reaches into this and seeks to now say to the tenant, well, you must pay your rent to me. Because whatever tenant refuses, what is the state going to do? Take the tenant to court for non-payment of the landlord's property tax? It's an absurdity, and it's palpable folly in the legislation to even impose such a section, because there are several other remedies set out within the legislation itself, within the very Property Tax Act, for collection of arrears, or for collection of payments from persons who do not pay. First of all, they established that the property taxes are charged on your land. They have procedures for distraint, whereby they can, levy distraint on your property and stuff like that. So therefore, I don't know what was the purpose or intent of that section, but I can tell you that is one that will surely be challenged in the constitutional courts, and I'm sure any judge is going to listen with great interest to any argument which suggests that this part of the law is unconstitutional.
So what would happen now if there are landlords, and there are many in Trinidad and Tobago, who are not in Trinidad and Tobago? What is going to be the situation with respect to that when you have to get the property tax from these landlords?
Well, the thing is, as I said, there are other measures within the legislation itself which include, first of all, that you have a charge on the land. So in other words, if they intend to do any transaction with the land in the future, then of course the payment of all outstanding taxes is something that would be a prerequisite from any financial institution, because it remains as a charge on the land. The property can be sold for outpayment for outstanding taxes. And in fact, that is the current legislation, even as it stands. So the thing is, there's absolutely no need to now go into the realm of a private contract between the landlord and tenant and say that, look, you are now calling upon the tenant to pay the landlord's property tax and then let the tenant deduct that from his rent. If the landlord evicts the tenant thereafter, is the state going to now fight the case on behalf of the tenant? It makes absolutely no sense. It's a wholly unnecessary provision. And it's one that I think, once challenged, is going to raise serious problems for the state in terms of its enforceability.
Now, when you say sold, you mean sold by whom?
Well, the state can, remember, if it is that you have outstanding property taxes, the state can put up your property for sale by public auction to recover the arrears of taxes. So there are several remedies available to the state already to collect property taxes, even from absentee landlords or persons who may be out of the country or persons who may have died or passed away, whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is there are several remedies available. So this imposition of a burden upon the tenant puts the tenant in a rather invidious position whereby you are saying that you can now ask the tenant to pay the landlord's property tax. Why would a tenant even be interested in paying his landlord's property tax? And if the tenant refuses, can you force the tenant? What, you're going to bring criminal proceedings against the tenant if the tenant doesn't want to pay the landlord's property tax? It's just, as I said, a palpable absurdity in the law. And one wonders what our legislators were thinking when they inserted such a provision. And don't be surprised if some of these same legislators come back to later challenge the validity of these proceedings.
And one final question, just to find out, how many instances are you aware of where properties have been sold because of not paying taxes?
The thing is, in terms of a number, I can't say, but I know that I have in the past seen advertisements whereby, properties have been put up for sale. The state has put up properties for sale for outstanding taxes. That it is possible within the law, and it has been done in the past. So therefore, it's not something that's novel or new or needed the intervention or the insertion of this draconian clause in the legislation whereby you're now putting the obligation on a tenant.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. George, I want to thank you for taking the time from Tobago. Vacation, is it?
Always a pleasure, and good morning to you, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.